Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Overtime Podcast, a Cold Front Report multicast. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Clayton Garrett. You can find me on Twitter at CFR Clayton, and joining me as always,
I am Jeff Uvino. You can find me on Twitter at RealJUVEINO.
Jeff, that was a game last night. That was the game that a lot of Bills fans everywhere. And to Bills Mafia, they have a lot to be excited about. Everything to be excited about after the Bills rout longtime rival New England Patriots 38-9 in a game that was never close. What are your overall thoughts regarding the contest last night between the Bills and the Patriots?
Well, Clayton, this had to have been the most satisfying Bills game that I've ever watched in my lifetime. Not the best, maybe not the most exciting, but the most satisfying Bills game that I have watched. And it's because the Bills went to Foxborough and they really just handed it to the Patriots. I mean, they were in control of this game virtually the entire way. I mean, was there ever a point that you were worried during this game about that the Bills may not have it in hand? Maybe the first few plays that the Patriots ran of the game, where they ran the ball down the field on that field goal drive, that was really the only life that we saw from New England this whole game. I mean, I thought that the Bills would outplay the Patriots coming into this one, but I don't know if I thought they'd outcoach them as well. And Buffalo just did everything better than New England in this game, and a 30-point win, 29 to be exact, in Foxborough in late December is really something that hasn't happened in a long time. And I'm sure that us as media members feel like broken records talking about all of these things that haven't happened in 20 years and 25 years, but it really just shows you the magnitude of what's going on. And this was just another example. I mean, the Bills have not disappointed Western New York. They haven't disappointed Bills Mafia. They haven't disappointed anyone in what seems like a really long time, in a year where time can sometimes move very slow, that being 2020. It seemed like a really long time since that Hail Mary that was the last disappointment that the Bills had. And since then, it's really been all smooth sailing. And it's been incredible to watch this run. And when's it going to end? When is it going to end? It seems like there's absolutely nothing stopping the Buffalo Bills right now. And it's really, it leaves us speechless. There's really no more we can say until something goes wrong.
Not a lot going wrong, but this is exactly kind of the game that I was expecting. The Bills went out there on Monday Night Football, and we keep bringing up that Arizona Cardinals Hail Mary at the end of the game. We keep bringing it up week after week, and we can't help but do it because you guys put yourselves in the shoes of these professional athletes. You go out there and you played your ass off for 60 minutes. They won that game. They outplayed the Cardinals in that game without a doubt. I thought the Bills deservingly won that game. And they lost on a last play that, looking at the way things have shook out here 7-8 weeks later, the Bills should have won that game, as the Bills have won every game since then. And the Cardinals have lost almost every single game since then as well. But now here the Bills are after beating the New England Patriots 38-9. And, going into this game, this is really kind of the game that I was anticipating the Bills having against the Patriots. And you look at the way they have played the last handful of weeks. You look at how they're rolling on all cylinders in every phase of the game. This was the game that the Bills were going to have against the Patriots. And this wasn't close. It was 24-9 at halftime, and the Bills tacked on 2 more touchdowns, and the Patriots didn't do anything. And they put Jarrett Stidham in there, I believe, after 2 series of Cam Newton in the second half, which, they were stalemated. They didn't do anything. And you watch how confidently this Bills team plays. And it was kind of a storyline leading up into this game of, the last time the Bills played the Patriots, Josh Allen wasn't quote-unquote MVP Josh Allen, even though he played great the games preceding to that Patriots game, and it was just a matter of the game plan. The Bills ran it with their 2 young running backs. Well, in this game, it wasn't the case, as he exceeded his output from the last meeting in the whole first half. And Josh Allen tore him up, and he did what he has done the last 6 or 7 games. And I haven't seen the brakes be put on Josh Allen at all this season. And we go back to another old question, Jeff. Is Josh Allen the league's MVP?
He's not, but in a season where you didn't have Aaron Rodgers throwing 44 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, he may be. But he's right up there. And I think that, Allen putting himself in that conversation this year says a lot about how far he's come. Because you think about these awards that the league gives out, whoever decides them, JC Jackson should have been in the Pro Bowl this year. I mean, his performance against Diggs right now is a completely different conversation, but JC Jackson was left off the Pro Bowl roster, and it's because he wasn't really anybody coming into this year, and he's made a name for himself over this season. Now, the fact that he is a possible snub this year, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute, he'll probably be on the roster next year if he plays adequately, because of what he did this year. That's kind of how it goes. You have to make a name for yourself 1 year, and then once you do that, you got the in, like Stephon Gilmore being a Pro Bowler this year. Josh Allen made a name for himself this year, and he got the in this year. And so I think that it will be a lot easier for Allen to be in that conversation going forward. The hardest thing, especially for a small market quarterback who is leading a team that hasn't been good in a long time, it's hard for him to gain respect. And we talk about that all the time, this being an underdog team, an underdog market, an underdog city. But Josh Allen has, just thrown all of that aside this year, and he's been so good that it's been undeniable how good he's been, and he's put himself in that conversation. And so going forward, Josh Allen could be a perennial MVP candidate going into every year. He's not the MVP this year because there's just been guys that have been better, as good as he's been. I know that you may have a rebuttal to that, Clayton, but my JC Jackson analogy is just that these are two guys that we weren't even talking about coming into this season, and that's why they may not be quite at that respect level yet, but they're sure as hell going to be going forward. And Allen has shown how you do that. He's shown that it doesn't matter what uniform you put on. It doesn't matter where you play. You're going to gain respect around the league if you're good enough, and it's been cool to see.
And, the reason I wanted to start today off with just this discussion is there's plenty to talk about in this game. We'll talk about Stephon Diggs and the incredible game he had. But Josh Allen being the most valuable player in the league, it's a conversation that you have to have. And I said leading into this game, if Allen has another one of his games, if Allen goes out there, throws 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, everything, what we have grown used to seeing from Josh Allen, if he goes out there and does that, it's going to be hard to fight him off for the MVP. And you're right. If Aaron Rodgers weren't having the season that he's having, then maybe it'd be more consensusly agreed upon that Josh Allen is the league MVP. But go back to Aaron Rodgers for a second. And everybody, it wasn't even really a conversation on Twitter that I had last night. But, someone pointed out to me that Aaron Rodgers literally is the Packers. And to that, I raised the point. Hasn't that been the case for a decade? Hasn't he been that whole team since Donald Driver left, since Greg Jennings left, since Jermichael Finley retired? Hasn't he been everything for the Packers since they won their last Super Bowl? That we all expect that out of Aaron Rodgers. And the reason I bring this up is just what Josh Allen did this season. While it was kind of expected, I wouldn't say it was expected by Jeff Uvino, but I stated earlier last year that Josh Allen could have an MVP caliber season in 2020, and here it has come to fruition. But the point is the national media, this whole season Josh Allen has had, it's unprecedented. They should be blown away. They should have never anticipated Josh Allen doing the things that he's doing this year. Should have never anticipated the 44 total touchdowns, the 9 interceptions. They should have never guessed it. They should be blown out of the water right now. Because guess what? Going into this year, everyone says, Josh Allen, he couldn't even complete 60% in his second year. He was last in the league in completion percentage last year. Why would anyone expect him to be an MVP caliber quarterback in his third year? Why? Well, they had Stephon Diggs, and Josh Allen grew this offseason. He applied himself to be one of the better quarterbacks, and that he has turned himself into. And I'm just curious, because it's a two-way street, and you have to keep it straight. And when you talk about all these people saying that Josh Allen wasn't going to be good to begin with, Josh Allen exceeded expectations in his second year by many people's expectations, really. He really did. And then in year 3, he blew it all out of the water with an MVP caliber season, where right now, here entering week 17, we're talking about Josh Allen being one of the 3 best players in football right now, which I believe him to be. But, all things considered, given the train of thought that the national media was largely in, Josh Allen should be the most valuable player. He really should. You all expect this out of Aaron Rodgers. You all expect it out of Pat Mahomes. Why didn't Pat Mahomes win it last year? Because you didn't expect Lamar Jackson to go out there and have the season that he had, even though Pat Mahomes had a slightly worse season the year before, and he had a better year, almost won the Super Bowl. Or no, they did win the Super Bowl, but he didn't win the MVP. I think if Josh Allen doesn't win the MVP this year, and this might be a little far off the edge, Jeff, you might have to pull me back a little. But if Josh Allen doesn't win the MVP in 2020, people will go back in history, look at it a year, maybe he should have. If the Bills go on to win the Super Bowl, you're going to look back on 2020 and be like, damn, the Bills won the Super Bowl. Look at the year Josh Allen had. How is he not the most valuable player in the NFL? How is he not? Josh Allen, I don't know. 4 primetime performances. If it was any stretch of games that would fuel a most valuable player award, it would have been these 4 games. And I think Josh Allen's done everything in his power to win that award.
Well, I think that Rodgers has been just as good. I mean, look at what Rodgers did on Sunday night in the snow against the Titans defense that really gave Allen a lot of issues. I get that was forever ago. That was a different part in the season. The Bills are a different team than they were when they played Tennessee. But, just because Allen has exceeded expectations doesn't mean that he is playing better than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers, he had the Titans. I mean, Josh has had 9 interceptions. Not that Josh hasn't been great. I'm not trying to say that. But I think that you just because Josh has exceeded expectations doesn't mean that he has had a better year than Aaron Rodgers, the established veteran. And I also think that an important thing to take into consideration when we're talking about the league's most valuable player is the feel around the league. I mean, we can look at numbers all we want, and I think that's a fallacy that a lot of people do in retrospect, is looking at numbers too much. We all feel right now, or at least a majority of us, a lot of people feel that Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers are 1 and 2 for the NFL MVP this year. If we look back 10 years from now and look at certain statistics, look at certain numbers that point to where Josh Allen may have been better than them, or maybe Josh Allen leads his team to the Super Bowl over Rodgers and Mahomes, then maybe we can look back and say, okay, why wasn't it Allen? But the feeling right now, maybe some people, I'm sure a lot of Bills fans have the feeling that Allen's the best player in the league, but he's objectively not. I just don't think he is. I think that Rodgers is more valuable to the Packers than Allen is to the Bills. I mean, obviously Josh Allen has made the Bills what they are this year, but just because we can look back and at numbers and say, okay, Allen led his team to the Super Bowl, and he was right there with Rodgers and Mahomes number-wise. Why wasn't he the MVP? And it's because of the feeling right now. I mean, it's hard to put that into words, the feeling that we have. I know it happens a lot more with baseball. In the MLB, there's a player, the best player who's having a big year, big batting year on a team that's making a playoff run. I think of Josh Donaldson in 2015. I think of Jose Altuve in 2017. I know that's out of our wheelhouse here, where this is a football show, obviously. But you need to take into consideration the feeling that we have. And I think the feeling around the league is Mahomes and Rodgers. Now, does their past accolades, their past accomplishments contribute to that? Yes. I mean, these guys have Super Bowls. They've both been Super Bowl MVPs. Correct me if I'm wrong. But these two guys have done it before. And that's where my point about Allen establishing himself comes into play. He's done that this year. So now maybe next year, Allen is regarded in the same way as Rodgers and Mahomes the whole season. And then maybe they can get a little bit fairer of a shake if that's what people think is happening, is that Allen isn't getting that credit because he hasn't done it before. If that's what you think the case is, then after this season, we won't have to worry about that anymore, because Allen will have that respect. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, that was a lot of words to say that in, but you got the feeling around the league right now. I mean, I want Josh Allen to be the MVP of the NFL. I do. But I watched Aaron Rodgers on Sunday night and I watched Josh Allen on Monday night, and they both looked really damn good. But Rodgers with the 4 less interceptions, and I mean, I don't know. It's hard to knock what he's doing up there.
It's hard to knock what any of these 3 quarterbacks are doing. I'm not going to say if Aaron Rodgers or Pat Mahomes win the MVP, I'm not going to be that guy. But I will say, you kind of alluded to it, where players get in these zones. Players are really hot. Josh Allen right now, he's firing on all cylinders, guys. Go watch how the Patriots played Josh Allen the 3 times previous to this meeting right now. And go look at what they did to him and what they tried to do in an effort to confuse him, in an effort to defend Josh Allen. And it stopped the Bills offense. Obviously, it's going to be a little different from 2019 to 2020 with Stephon Diggs on this offense. But last night, you saw a lot less blitzing. You saw a lot more people in coverage, and it didn't matter. Doesn't matter. And this is what I've been saying for the last 2 weeks. It hasn't mattered what these defenses are throwing at Allen. Not in regards to pressure, not in regards to coverage. It doesn't matter. This kid is really smart. Josh Allen is really smart. And he has gotten into that zone that you're speaking about, Jeff. He has gotten into that pocket where, he's diagnosing defenses. And he knows where to go with the football. And he is making the plays with the football. And it just seems like Josh Allen is more comfortable in that pocket than I've seen him in a long time. And I think a large reason in part as to why Josh Allen has looked so comfortable, has looked so poised, go look at how often he's getting touched back there. Go look at it. Go look at the stats. He's been sacked 4 times in the last month. That's crazy. When you talk about the Bills' offensive line and you consider how far they have come and you look at the guys they have added and shuffled in there throughout the duration of this season, 4 sacks in the last month. That's crazy. Josh Allen is standing back there with the utmost comfort, throwing to guys like Stephon Diggs, who we'll cover in just a second. Guys like Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, who's really, come on here since John Brown has been placed on injured reserve. And also we'll talk about John Brown and that whole situation in just a moment. But Josh Allen is as comfortable as any quarterback in the NFL. And I understand he might not win the MVP this year, but you're absolutely correct, Jeff, when saying this is the year he puts his ticket in the box. Next year might be the year that he gets the shiny trophy. I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And I do tend to agree with you slightly. But there is an argument to be made for those that want to make it. Josh Allen should be the most valuable player in the NFL. And huge props to this Bills offensive line, who are just giving him the most time, some of the most time in the NFL, and some of the cleanest pockets in the league too. And you also have to attribute that to his mobility and his escapability and his pocket awareness. And Josh Allen, I don't know. I'm not seeing many defenses right now that have an answer for what Allen's doing with the football, and he's just been on a fire these last 7 games.
Yeah, and the Bills' offense is complete. It's more than just a quarterback. But the thing is, that's what you need. That's what the Kansas City Chiefs have, and I don't mind repeatedly comparing the Bills' offense to the Chiefs' offense, because the Chiefs are the standard in the league right now. They're the defending champions. They've lost once this year because the Oakland had a good day on offense, Las Vegas had a good day on offense, and they're really the team to beat. And the Bills are the second best team in the NFL right now. They may be playing than the Chiefs are, better than the Chiefs are right now, but the Chiefs are they're the king right now. They're the best team in the league. To be the best, you got to beat the best. And to beat the best, you got to beat the Chiefs. And that's what the Bills are looking to do. And this Bills offense is very similar to the Chiefs offense in that it has everything. You need the quarterback. That's your first part you need. You need the quarterback. They both have it. You need weapons around him. The Bills have those in Diggs and Beasley and Brown and Gabe Davis and just guys that can make an impact. Both teams have that. You need the offensive line. Both the Chiefs and the Bills have great offensive line. And you need the play caller. They both have great offensive minds calling plays for them. These offenses have absolutely everything. And it's kind of been the perfect storm for Josh Allen and the Bills, and that they've been able to really, really just all gel together this year. I mean, what is the Bills' weakness? What is the Bills' offensive weakness? The running game, I guess, when you have 2 young backs who are dynamic runners who are always falling forward for extra yards, who can make people miss, physical runners. I mean, that's your weakness, I guess. This Bills offense is complete. You have a quarterback playing at an MVP caliber. He's a top 3 player in the league right now, and you have everything else. And that's what you're going to need to beat a team like Kansas City in the playoffs, or beat a team like Tennessee in the playoffs. And that's what the Bills have. And we need to give credit to everybody contributing to this offense, because it's been a group effort, as great as Josh has been, because he has been great, but it's been everybody else as well. I mean, you see Lee Smith catching a touchdown last night, Lee Smith scampering down the sideline, getting into the red zone after a long reception. It's everybody. They're having so much fun on offense, and everything is working. Everything is clicking. And the stretch where they've won 8 out of 9, I think they've really found it. And I said for a while, I thought that they may just be peaking. I believe I said that 2 weeks ago. I thought that they may be peaking. And I was wrong. I think that this is just the identity of the Bills offense. But, we'll see what they can do against teams like Tennessee and the Chiefs in the playoffs.
And you talk about the stretch of games that the Bills have, fabricated here at the last 7 or 8 games. It's hard to find football teams finding their stretch right at the right point in the season. It's so hard to find that in sports. Any sport, not just football, basketball, baseball, any sport. It's incredibly difficult, and it's hard to replicate when these teams find their stride three-dimensionally as they enter the playoffs, as they enter the most important point of their season where they will determine whether their season was a success or failure. And you watch how the Bills are playing right now. And Jeff, we've talked about it the last 3 weeks, whether this is a peak or this is the Bills crescendoing to what could be a potential Super Bowl run. And week after week, over the last 2 months, this Bills team has proved to everybody, every Bills fan with a defeatist attitude that's waiting for this team to bottom out, waiting for this team to kind of burn out of this pocket that they're in right now. Most Bills fans have been kind of waiting for that, letdown game. Oh, well, they've played great for 7 games. It would happen. They would bottom out in New England when the Patriots don't have much to play for. And they have 8 losses already, and that team hasn't looked good. That would be the game they'd play like crap. No, they said the same thing about the Broncos game. They said the same thing about the Steelers game. It's not happening. This team has been on fire. I didn't think they were peaking. This team does not indicate to me as a team that's been peaking. And you touched on how three-dimensional this offense is and how it ultimately is the fuel for this team. And we said it in the offseason. You look at the pieces that this team has built, that this team has put together, and I understand it's a little different up front than we were anticipating with Ike Bacher being thrown in there at left guard, but he has done a tremendous job along the interior since, he's really kind of found his place on the offensive line since Feliciano and Mitch Morse have both been back. He's really found his place at left guard. And you look at how the front's performing, how the rushing attack's performing, how the passing attack's performing. I understand when you have players like Stephon Diggs who are having 145 yards on Monday Night Football with 3 touchdown catches, not to mention that last one, that was crazy. But when you have those kind of performances, it's a lot easier to focus on the passing attack. But make no mistake about it. The Bills are a football team where if they wanted to run this football 45 times in a game, I understand that's a little hyperbolic, but if they wanted to run the ball all game, control the clock, control the ball, control the line of scrimmage, they can. They can do that to you. And you watched it for a whole a whole quarter and a half of football last night, pretty much. After the Bills put up 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, they pulled their guys and they just ran the ball with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary the rest of the way because they can. And it's not like they were doing that and just running into a wall and getting stopped and pulled off the field. I understand they weren't facing one of the best run defenses in football last night, but they've been doing this for weeks. We all remember the Steelers game when you're facing one of the best defenses in the league, statistically the best defense in the league. When they were facing one of the best defenses in the league, they took a drive for 7 minutes and 11 seconds, and they ran the clock out. They have been doing this to teams for the last 2 months. They have had this offense rolling on all cylinders in every facet, and that is really what has turned this team into a Super Bowl contender, not to mention performances such as the one that Stephon Diggs had with 9 catches, 145 yards off of 11 targets, 3 touchdowns, averaging over 16 yards a catch. That's crazy. That's unlike any performance that I have seen any Bills wide receiver have in prime time in my entire life. And that, I'm not sure if that's saying much, but that covers the last 20 years. Jeff, Stephon Diggs in this game.
Yeah, there's not really any words. I mean, we know what happened with the incompletion where J.C. Jackson gave the big incomplete sign in Stephon's face, and he said, "I'm going to get you," and he did, and he got him 3 times. And I mean, he continues to impress us. He's always open. He makes the tough catches. He makes sideline catches. He makes timely catches, and he really he makes it appear as though he's all you need on the offensive end. When Cole Beasley didn't get a lot of action last night, John Brown obviously has been out for a month, but Diggs just took over the game. And the thing is, that's a good Patriots secondary that they were facing. It's the strength of their entire football team, that Patriots secondary. and they were keyed in on Diggs, and he beat them. He beat them anyways. I know Gilmore's out, but still, I mean, just a tremendous performance. And we're kind of waiting for a defense to slow this Bills offense down, and I don't think there is one that can do it right now. If the Bills offense, which, as I said, has been so complete, been so unstoppable. I mean, their quarterback only played 3 quarters. When your quarterback plays 3 quarters, that's about as well as you can hope a football game to go in the NFL. And I think that, facing Pittsburgh a few weeks ago, Pittsburgh is, in my opinion, still the best defense in the league, the most opportunistic defense in the league. I know that they've been on the downhill skid, but their win against Indianapolis this week was impressive, coming back and being able to shut them down the entire second half. That says a lot. And that defense was able to hold the Bills down for one half, but not an entire game. And I think Pittsburgh had a great game plan against the Bills, against the Josh Allen, the young quarterback, by blitzing him a lot and putting him in uncomfortable situations. And I think that the way the Bills overcame that, they've shown that I don't know if there's a defense in the NFL that can slow down this Buffalo offense the way it's playing right now. New England certainly couldn't do it. The 49ers couldn't do it. The Broncos didn't stand a chance of doing it. And it's a week to week thing. And it's been so impressive. See, and I think that I have confidence in the Bills offense going into the postseason, going into next week and the postseason, that if the Bills are going to get knocked out of the playoffs, it's not going to be on Josh Allen's behalf. It's going to be because their defense couldn't contain whoever the opponent might be, or that their defense gets outcoached or outplayed. I have no concerns with the Buffalo offense right now. I'm really just, interested in seeing how the defense performs against Miami next week. And then also going into the playoffs, how is this Bills defense going to be able to just keep the other team off the board and off the field enough for Allen to do his thing? Because I don't know if there's anybody that can stop him if he's playing how he has in the month of December.
And key, month of December. Nobody has been able to stop Josh Allen in the month of December. Nobody. You just ran down the list. Not any of these defenses have had an answer for what the Bills do on the offensive side of the ball. And that's credit to all these playmakers that are out there executing. And it's also credit to Brian Daboll, because it feels like not only is Josh Allen confident, not only is Josh Allen in his pocket, not only is Josh Allen going out there and firing on all cylinders, so is his play caller. His play caller is confident. His play caller is trusting the guys on the field. And that's a huge part of having an efficient offense in the NFL. Because if your play caller can't trust you, what are you really going to get done on that side of the ball? It's going to be a half-baked offense of what you really want to run. But now Brian Daboll, who I've been critical of in the past, Brian Daboll's had his best stretch of games as an offensive coordinator in his career over the last 2 months. And it's been incredible. And what it's going to ultimately lead to is Brian Daboll getting a head coaching job and Ken Dorsey being elevated as offensive coordinator for the Bills. That's what it's going to lead to, because that's the way this league works. But before Brian Daboll leaves, there's a real crack. The Bills really do have a true crack at the Super Bowl championship. They really do. And with that, Jeff, I want to know, leading into the playoffs, you kind of said you're waiting to find and see and find if there's a defense that can really stop this Bills offense with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and they haven't even gotten smoke back yet. But you're really wondering if there's a defense that can stop the Bills offense. I want to know, do you think the Bills are primed to make a Super Bowl run, as it appears that all they have to do is win next week and they have the second seed locked up? So unless they have to play Kansas City, they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They don't have their first week. They don't have a first round bye. They'll have to play this. I believe it's the 6th seed, and then whoever, and then going forward. But they will have home field advantage until they have to play Kansas City, assumably in the AFC Championship, if they make it that far. Do you think the Bills have what it takes to make it to that point, to find to face the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead for the AFC Championship?
Well, they certainly can do that. It's a matter of if they will, and I think we should keep a close eye on, the potential playoff scenarios, potential matchups for the Bills in the first round. Now, we're obviously assuming that the Bills beat the Dolphins. I think that's easier said than done. But if we're assuming they do and they are that number 2 seed, there's a lot of good teams that are going to be wildcard teams. And, of course, the first season that the NFL eliminates both the top 2 teams in each conference getting a bye. Of course, that would be the year where the Bills could have taken advantage of that. The first year that there is a 7th team in the playoff is the only year in my memory that would have impacted, the Buffalo Bills. And, there are good teams. There are really 5 teams that are vying for those 3 spots, that being Tennessee, Baltimore, Miami, and Indianapolis. And all of those teams, it's basically win and you're in. I know Indy needs some help. Indy needs somebody to lose in order for them to get in. But, everybody has their opinions on who they want the Bills to play in that first round. A lot of people saying Miami, and I think they should be hesitant about saying that because nobody knows each other better in the NFL than divisional opponents. And the Bills playing Miami this week, I think this game is going to matter more than Bills fans think. I mean, you obviously want that number 2 seed, so you don't have to go to Pittsburgh or Tennessee in that second round game, whoever that may end up being in that 3 seed. But it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row in the NFL. We know that. Everybody knows that. It's really, really difficult to beat a team 3 times. And so if the Bills win this game against the Dolphins on Sunday, and then they end up playing potentially Miami the next week, then I would be worried about that. However, if you beat Miami this week and you knock them out, then you could put yourself into a situation where you might have to play the Ravens or the Colts. And, Lamar Jackson isn't exactly your, ideal first round matchup, and neither is the Browns running game. And so everybody's going to kind of have their opinions on who the ideal opponent would be for the Bills in the first round of the playoffs. And Clayton, I want to hear your opinion. If you could pick any of those 4 teams or 5 teams, it could be Tennessee, Indianapolis, Miami, Baltimore, or Cleveland. Who are you taking to play in that first round as that number 7 seed, assuming the Bills are number 2?
I'm glad we're having this talk on the podcast, because it's really that's really what all of Twitter's been the last 2 weeks, is people arguing over who they want to play in the first round of the playoffs. And if I had a pick of the litter, I'd pick Miami, mainly because I think if the Bills are aware of the situation playing Miami in the postseason the week after they play them in week 17, they're not going to give them a real game plan. And I have a lot of confidence in the Bills winning both of those games. I don't think Tua is going to come up there and beat Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott's defense in Buffalo. I don't think they stand a chance against the Bills, quite frankly. I'm not worried about the Dolphins at all. I think Sean McDermott's a better coach than Brian Flores. I think the Bills have a better defense. I think the Bills, that offense is not going to be able to keep up with the Bills' offense. And I think Josh Allen's going to be fine against the Dolphins, I think, regardless of whenever they play. But to be quite honest with you, Jeff, in terms of who they have to play, whether it's Cleveland, whether it's Tennessee, whether it's the Ravens, whether it's the Colts, whether it's it doesn't matter to me. It does not matter to me. And like I just said, if I had my pick of the litter, I'd pick the Dolphins, because I think the Dolphins suck. I really do. I think they're a fake team, and I don't think Tua Tagovailoa is very good right now. And key word is right now. He could be good, but right now, he's not it. And quite frankly, you look at how the Bills match up with any of those teams. Obviously, we're talking about a team like Tennessee, who did get blown out by the Bills, but all things considered, I think all Bills fans are familiar with the situation that the Bills face going into that game. I think it's a different story this time around if the Bills have to play Tennessee in the playoffs again, especially considering the Bills would have home field advantage and know when the game's being played 3 days before the game takes place. But with how all those teams match up with the Bills, you take each matchup for what it's worth. I'm not scared. I have the utmost confidence in the Buffalo Bills right now to take out any of those 5 teams, all of them. There's only one team on my mind that worries me in terms of matchups, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. And even that team I'm not all that worried about right now either. Because go ahead, watch every team's last, we can keep going. I keep saying it every week. You can watch the last 2 months of football from all 7 teams that are going to be in the playoffs for the AFC right now. None of them are playing better football than the Buffalo Bills. None of them. It doesn't. And you can go to strength of schedule. You can factor in everything. It does not matter. The Bills are playing the best football in the conference, arguably in the league. And the only team that you have to argue against them that's playing better ball than them right now are possibly the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, which, I mean, we kind of discussed earlier. But the point is, Look at how the Bills match up with all those teams. Indianapolis, I'm not afraid of Phillip Rivers. The Browns, I'm not afraid of Baker Mayfield. The Ravens, that's the team of any of those teams. That's the team I'm most concerned about, because that's the team in this conference, in this conference that's also on a roll. They've won 4 games in a row, and that's a confident team that have they had a lot of playoff experience? Those players may not have, but that coaching staff damn sure has. That coaching staff knows what it takes to win a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh knows what it takes. And am I a little more concerned about the Ravens in the first round, considering all the things they have to prove this year in the playoffs, considering Lamar Jackson, I believe he's 0-2 in the playoffs, and he's never really had that great of a performance in the playoffs. Does that worry me a little more than all those other teams? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily afraid of the Ravens. I'm not afraid of any of those teams in the playoff bracket, quite frankly. And I'll take the Bills in all of those matchups. I will. And I think that's not really a testament as to how good the AFC is right now. I think the AFC is the better conference, and they have overall better teams. But however, I find paths of victory for the Bills in all of those games. Whereas in years past, could you say that the Bills, that you'd be confident in the Bills heading into the postseason? Well, I mean, it hasn't really happened many times in the years past, but it's certainly a different discussion right now in comparison to last year. We're going to the Texans game. I understand both of us, Jeff, you and I remember we were both very confident going to that Texans game, and that how those teams matched up, despite Deshaun Watson and the heroics he can perform with the football. We were both confident going into that playoff matchup. But going into the playoffs this year, it's a different conversation, because you look, I spoke to it earlier, as to how difficult it is to replicate what the Bills are doing right now in terms of confidence and the wave of momentum that they're riding into the playoffs. I don't think there's a single team in this conference that can go toe-to-toe with the Bills that aren't the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that view you hold of not, being worried about anybody until the Chiefs is how a lot of Bills fans feel. And I think that is the product of how well Buffalo has played over the last couple months, and it's valid. However, I also think it's a little reckless to overlook some of these teams, because, the Bills aren't indestructible. Yes, they've been great. They've been arguably the best team in the league in December and even into November. But there are a lot of good teams in the AFC. There are a lot of really good teams in the AFC. And I think that, the Bills have their weaknesses just as much as other teams do. And a team like the Browns concern me because of their rushing attack. The Bills are susceptible to giving up big rushing yards. When they played Kansas City, they gave up over 200 of them. Last night against the Patriots, you can say, oh, the Bills are a different team than they were when they played Kansas City. Yeah, but last night they gave up 145 rushing yards to the Patriots, a team that they're not capable of throwing the ball. They're not. It's a one-dimensional team. You knew it was coming. They gave up 145 rushing yards to the Patriots, 6 yards per rush. Now, this isn't me saying the Bills are going to go lose in the playoffs. However, there's a lot of tough teams in the AFC, the Browns being one of them. I'm not afraid of Baker Mayfield either, but I'm afraid of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt running for 200 yards against the Bills and how many points that could put up. Did you see what they did to Tennessee? I mean, there are a lot of good teams. Lamar Jackson, he's out for retribution after the season he had last year. He was the league MVP, and he got bounced in his first playoff game by the Titans. He's hungry. Ryan Tannehill and the Titans, their rushing attack. Is this Bills run defense really going to slow down Derrick Henry? I don't know. These are all questions that we need to ask ourselves. And, you can be as confident as you want going into the playoffs, but the apprehension comes in that there are some matchups that are unfavorable for the Bills. And that's why I say it's going to come down to, can this Bills defense hold enough for Josh to outscore whoever the opponent is? Because I don't think anyone's slowing down this Bills offense. Even Kansas City, they're not going to do it. They're not slowing down the Bills offense, in my opinion. The way they've played, it's, can the Bills defense keep serve? Can they hold serve? Can they continue to do this? I mean, there are a lot of tough matchups in the AFC because there's a lot of good teams. And I don't know. I think it's a little reckless for fans to be saying there's nobody that can beat us. We're going to beat the Chiefs. We're going to roll right through the AFC. I think that's a reckless way to look at this. And I think you're overlooking the matchups if that's how people are feeling, especially just being better than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the league until somebody beats them. And I mean, nobody has. It does. So that's my opinion on it. Clayton, you still, it looks like Clayton left the show, so it's just me in here now. So hopefully we can get back in here soon. But looking at some more potential playoff matchups for the Bills, there are a million scenarios that can happen. He's back. Did you
live? We're having some connection issues. All right, we're back. I don't know what happened.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if you had left or not, but I was going to attempt to go out on about some potential scenarios, but you're back. So
No. I want to touch on what you said, because you're right. It is that is kind of a reckless point of view and a way to view how the Bills are going into the playoffs. And I agree with you. Absolutely it's reckless. But with how good the Bills are playing right now, you can be a person like me can be reckless in their confidence. And this I am giving pragmatic analysis of the Buffalo Bills. I don't just say these things because I don't know. I just get on a tangent and a roll, and I just go with whatever comes out of my mouth. I say these things because they're well thought out, and this is how I really feel about this football team. And you talk about the Browns. You talk about how the Patriots ran the ball last night. The Patriots had 130 rushing yards in the first half. And you know what? The Bills, up until last night, they held deep. They held offenses to less than 100 rushing yards in 4 of their last 5 games. Now, this is a much more modern train of thought, but you have to have it in mind, because look at how the Bills offense was playing. You could say they were playing differently. They're playing a little more efficiently right now than they were at the beginning of the year. They're really, they're finding their stride. And the Bills only allowed 15 rushing yards in the second half last night. And that's a testament to how the Bills have been playing football really these last 8 games. Have they necessarily fixed the rush defense? You could argue, no, not really. They allowed 6 yards per carry last night to Patriots running backs. They allowed 6 yards per carry to Melvin Gordon. They allowed 6 yards per carry to the 49ers. You could make the argument that the Bills' rush defense is not fixed, which, it's fair. The run defense is not. I'm still worried about it. Would I be worried facing Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt? Absolutely. But right now, in 2020, with the defense that you have, combined with the offense that you have, your best run defense right now is your offense. And by that, I mean getting out to leads such as 24-9 at halftime, where, yes, the Patriots are a one-dimensional offense. You knew they were going to run the football on you, and they still got 130 yards in the first half. Well, they only had 9 points to show for it. And this defense played very well in situations. And that's really been the case all year with this Bills defense. Once they get in the red zone, they're a very good situational team. And even Jordan Poyer touched on it last night, how that team did not, they failed to force a turnover. And, I think that could largely be due in part to the Patriots being afraid to throw the football. But, that's what they've been given this year. They were playing with Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham, so they weren't really going to throw the football all that much last night anyways. But the point is, when you get out to leads like 24-9, you play teams out of their comfort zone. If the Bills can get to 2-possession leads against teams like the Browns, like the Colts, you could say that with the Colts. Jonathan Taylor's been on fire too. But you get a 2-possession lead on Phillip Rivers. Is he a little more capable than these other guys that I'm talking about, like a Cam Newton, like a Baker Mayfield? I tend to believe so. But Phillip Rivers doesn't really have a track of success in the postseason in his 30-year career as it is. So I'm not worried. I agree. I know what you're saying, Jeff. It is a little reckless to kind of sit here and say, oh, the Bills are going to wash the AFC, but that's not really what I'm saying. But you look at how this team matches up with those teams. I think, I'm not necessarily worried about these teams running on the Bills all that often, because the Bills can control the clock on offense. It's not like they can't run the ball, and they can score on offense. It's not like they can't throw it all over the yard and have these short, quick firing drives that are potent. It's not the case in point with the Bills offense right now. I am comfortable with that Bills offense because I believe they can outscore any opposing offense other than the Chiefs, which I'll hold reservations on until I see it happen.
Yeah, outscoring and being completely better than are two different things. I think that the way the Bills offense is playing right now, they can get a lot of teams in trouble quickly with their offensive ability. But, my apprehension comes from some of these rushing attacks, such as the Titans, such as the Browns, who can really their strength has been the Bills' weakness in the rushing game, and that's something to keep an eye on, because if those teams also play the possession game, if they're running the ball down the field, the Bills' defense can't stop it. Then you're keeping the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, and that obviously is hindering his ability to overcome the deficiencies of the Bills' rush defense. But I've said the last couple of weeks that if I could have any playoff opponent in the first round of those 5 AFC teams that are possible for the Bills to play, I'd take the Colts, and I'd take them over the Dolphins, because I would rather see Phillip Rivers and the Colts for the first time this year than I would want to see the Dolphins a third time. I think that the Colts are a slightly better team than Miami is. However, I just don't want to see Miami a third time. I think that that's a recipe for disaster, especially if you go out and beat them this weekend and then they somehow snag that 7 seed. I think that people are really undervaluing how hard it is to beat a team in the NFL 3 times in a row. I wish I had a statistic to back that up, but it rarely happens. And so I would choose the Colts as a potential opponent. They looked really good in that first half against the Steelers, and then they looked really bad in the second half. They kind of collapsed, and there was no reason for them to lose that game. And the Colts have my respect, certainly. All of these teams do. But I think that that's your best matchup, and that you're playing Rivers, a guy who doesn't quite have the big play potential that Lamar Jackson would have if you were playing the Ravens in that first round. And so I would pick the Colts, but it's tough. It's really tough. If not the Colts and the Dolphins, then those other 3 teams are all good. The Browns rushing attack scares me. The Titans scoring 42 points on the Bills scares me. And Lamar Jackson's ceiling scares me. And so it's going to be fun this week to be able to scoreboard watch and kind of see everything that's going to fall into place. But if I had to pick an opponent for the Bills in the first round, I'm taking Indianapolis, and I'm confident in the Bills' ability to outscore them.
I'm confident in the Bills' ability to make Phillip Rivers. I hate watching Phillip Rivers. I'm sorry. I've never liked watching Phillip Rivers. He looks like a spat in the pocket. Like, he really does. Like, as soon as he grabs the ball, he's playing Just Dance, and he's moving his feet like erratically as possible, unnecessarily. He moves his just watch him. I don't like watching Phillip Rivers. It's gross. He has to throw his whole back into out routes. It's just, I'll take the Colts. I'll take the Colts, but I want to know, aside from beating a divisional opponent 3 times, which I agree with you, when I first initially started like playing around with this discussion for 4 weeks, or like 4 weeks ago, that was my apprehension as well. Is it's incredibly difficult to beat a team in the NFL 3 times in one season. It's incredibly difficult, and I feel like people don't give enough merit to that fact, and I agree with you, but I'm not necessarily worried about what the Dolphins bring on the field in terms of matchups, especially with Tua Tagovailoa as their quarterback. Aside from the factor that it'd be the 3rd time these 2 teams met, and the 2nd time in 2 weeks if it were to play out the way we're talking about. So if the Dolphins were able to slide into the playoffs and meet the Bills in the first round of the playoffs, what worries you the most in terms of the matchup? And it's applicable considering they play the team again this week as well.
Against the Dolphins.
Yes.
I mean, I think that the Dolphins have a very good defense. They've done some really good things this year against some good teams. Now I think the Bills' offense is better, and I think the Bills will get their points against Miami. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ryan Fitzpatrick in that game. Fitzpatrick coming in, playing in a stadium where he was the home quarterback for a number of years, a place that he's very familiar with, obviously. And I mean, I know that they're gonna go with Tua this week, I believe, is what they said. He's their guy. He's the guy they're trying to build for the future, but they haven't been hesitant to pull him when things go wrong. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Fitzpatrick play in this game in week 17. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Fitzpatrick start that playoff game. I mean, it's not a bad thing if Brian Flores admits that he was wrong with wanting to start Tua. I think that he would own up to that and say that this is who we're giving our team. This is who's giving our team the best chance to win, that being Fitzpatrick. But I don't know. We'll see how the game goes this week for sure. I think that the Bills are overall better than the Dolphins. It's just the fact that they would have had to beat them 3 times. Now, if you lose to the Dolphins this week, that's another thing. And then the 3rd time, I still am not in love with playing the Dolphins twice in a row, for the third time this season, excuse me. But that would make me a little more confident if they lose to them this week, and that's a very real possibility. I mean, we really don't know what we're going to see in this Week 17 game, and that's why you and I are discussing the playoffs a little more, because we're just not sure what we're going to see. I mean, are the Bills going to go all in and get that 2 seed, or are they going to say, we already clinched our playoff spot, we might as well just stay back and stay healthy for the postseason? We don't really know. I think it also depends on what the weather's like in Orchard Park this weekend. I'm not sure what they're calling for on Channel 7, but it's, I don't know what that's going to be. That impacts the game a lot, as we've seen so far this season. So the Dolphins defense is the strength of their team, but I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick's ability to come in late in the game and make things happen is what scares me against this team. I mean, it's almost comical, I feel, saying that is Ryan Fitzpatrick is the guy who's going to come in and ruin this great thing. But hey, it could happen. And so if the Bills lose this week, and they play, and so that would make them 1-1 against Miami. They're playing them again in the playoffs. I think that would make me a little less apprehensive, but I still don't want to see them for the second week in a row.
No, I understand your thought process with having to face the Dolphins because, all things considered, I think Brian Flores is a good coach. But I don't know, seeing how he's handled his quarterback situation kind of makes me peel back on that because I don't know. There's a certain thing that I called him off air to Bills beat reporter Mookie Hawkins, but that I'm not going to say on air because I don't like using the bleep button and it's not really applicable on a live stream. So, but the Bills facing Tua doesn't worry me as much as if they had a relief quarterback come in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, think about it. Fitz sits there for a whole half. He has the iPad in his hand. He's looking at what the defense is doing, observing their tendencies. The guy, he's crazy smart. I don't know if you knew this, but he went to Harvard. So think about it. Situationally, it makes sense to pull Tua and put in Ryan Fitzpatrick. In terms of how confident your quarterback is, no, it's not good. It's not good for Tua. If it's like one of those things where it's like the girl's cheating on the guy, but the guy's kind of cool with it. It's like I don't know. It's something unlike anything I've seen in sports where you pull the guy you drafted in the top 5 for a vet who is a journeyman quarterback who took your team to a fairly good record the first half of the season. And now you've managed to fall forward. I don't know. Personally, I think the Dolphins are kind of taking this and seeing where they can go with it because think about it. There's a scenario where they could potentially end up with the number 3 pick in this year's draft because of the trade that they made for Laramie Tunsil, where they got Houston's first-round pick. So they're playing with house money right now, where they don't really have to tank, and they're going to end up with a top 5 pick. Like, that is the best of both worlds. You'll still have your first-round selection. They might have another one, too. I'm not positive. But, like I said, the Dolphins are playing with house money right now, and they're really kind of going as far as they want to go. And they're kind of towing the line of the maturation process of Tua Tagovailoa, but trying to win games. And it's just it's a mess. And if you're asking me, I don't think Brian Flores is handling his quarterback situation the correct way. If you ask me, you see how the Bills handled their quarterback situation. You take your bumps. You take your lumps. You take your bumps. Take your bruises with your rookie quarterback. Go down with your shit, man. Stop pulling them out when it's like, oh, we might lose. Come on, Tua. Come on. No, it's stupid. I understand the point. I understand trying to win football games and trying to be the best team out there. But at the same time, you're trying to develop a young quarterback. And like I mentioned, you haven't really seen that. Make the kid face adversity. Make him face adversity. That's not me saying he's never faced adversity in high school and college, but he's learning the game as he goes. I mean, Josh Allen's still learning the game. He's 3 years into his career. There's plenty of time for Tua to sit back there in the pocket and learn. But the point is, it's not a healthy way to develop your young quarterback. And for some reason, I feel like this is kind of this could kind of be the falling out process for Brian Flores. It could be. If there has been anything wrong this guy has done to his football team since he's been hired by the Dolphins, it's playing this little game that he is right now with Tua Tagovailoa and Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, when Josh Allen was a rookie, that was obviously a different scenario for the Bills. They weren't really there as far as the roster. They weren't really playoff caliber roster, and I don't think the Dolphins thought they had that going into this season as well. They've arrived a year early. I think a lot of us can agree on that the Dolphins had a lot of talent coming into this season, but they didn't quite think they'd have all the pieces there yet, and they have. And they've been good. Like I said, their defense has been good. They have good weapons in Devontae Parker, Matt Gesicki, and just good quality players on both sides of the ball, good young players. And we need to remember going into this Buffalo game, Miami doesn't need this, but they damn sure are close to need it. Meaning that they can get in without winning, but if they win, they're in. And winning you're in is about as clear as you can put it to an NFL football team or any pro sports team. You just need to win this game and you achieve the goal that you've been working toward all season, that being making the playoffs. And I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick gives you a better chance to do that than Tua Tagovailoa does. I understand that you want to develop your young quarterback. You want to be right. You want your front office wants to be correct in the fact that they've drafted the best quarterback that they could have. They want that to be proven by Tua's play on the field. However, I think that being the plan going into this year, that they were going to develop Tua, scrap that once you realize how good you are, because you can contend this year. Like you said, you can still get a top pick because of the trade. You can contend while still building your assets. And so I think you scrap the plan to keep Tua this year. Let him learn for a year. There's nothing wrong with that. Let him learn, let him understand him in the games when you need him. I don't know how many scenarios would arise where you can do that, but do that instead of give him, the reins to this franchise that is a top 6-7 team in the AFC. They could be 11-5 if they win this week. The Bills haven't been until this year 11-5 since when? Who knows? The 90s? This is a really good football team, and I think that Fitzpatrick would give them a better chance to win this game and win the playoff game if it comes down to playing Buffalo in that. But we know they're likely going to go with Tua, and it'll be interesting to see how the Bills counter that.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. And I don't know. I think the Dolphins this week, let's not forget, the Buffalo Bills, they win this game, they are the 2 seed in the AFC. They have something to play for this week. This is why on today's show, obviously, because we're not even 12 hours, barely 12 hours removed from the conclusion of last night's Monday Night Football game. Obviously, that's part of why we're just talking the Bills game, the Bills-Patriots game right now, and not previewing this Dolphins game. But in terms of this Dolphins matchup, both these teams have plenty to play for this week. And this goes in part of why we're not really going in depth and discussing it just right now, the Tuesday after the Monday night game. We're not sure. Who knows if the Bills are going to play their guys? I understand they hold their own fate. The Steelers and Browns game did not get flexed to Sunday night, which is a big deal, which means the Bills will be kicking off at the same time as the Browns and Steelers game, which directly impacts the Bills' decision as to whether or not they're going to roll with their starters throughout the whole duration of this game. And the way that'll impact it is if the Steelers lose, the Bills don't have to win. They can go 12-4 and have that second seed. But if the Steelers beat the Cleveland Browns, then the Bills would have to win, and the Bills would have to beat the Miami Dolphins in order to have that second seed, which if you're asking me, they should prioritize that. You should always prioritize home playoff games. And I think, this coaching staff, it's probably pounded into these players' head that they prioritize home playoff games. That's really been, I was listening to the Rock Pile Report with Drew Gear and Chris Kruger. Shout out to the Rock Pile Report. And they had Reed Ferguson on the show. And he kind of said ever since he came to Buffalo, that's really been the mantra. That's really been what they have been striving for, is home playoff games in Buffalo. And don't forget, Reed's been there since before this regime. Reed was a guy, one of the only guys other than Jerry Hughes, the only guy other than Jerry Hughes that was carried over onto this team from the Rex Ryan regime, because he was on the practice squad before before Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott got here, and they kept him. And that kind of goes into saying this team. I think this is going to be a real game for the Bills. And as the week goes on, we will see. There's going to be more information that comes out, and these teams, they're going to have their press conferences in the middle of the week, some point in time. I'm not really positive as to when, but We will have the answers that we're looking for in terms of how much this game's really going to mean to the Bills. And personally, if I'm the Buffalo Bills and I have to make this decision, look at last year and how that played out for them. They benched their guys against the Jets. They lost the game the week previous to the New England Patriots. It was close. I believe that was also on Prime. I think that was that was Saturday Night Football. But they weren't really riding much momentum into the playoffs. They had lost 2 of 3, and they didn't start their guys against the Jets in the last game of the year, and then they went into Houston kind of dull, kind of burnt out. They hadn't really had a game in a month, and that I believe the game I'm speaking of, it might have been either the Broncos game or the Steelers game. I don't remember, but one of those 2 games, that was the last real game, quote unquote, for the Bills, other than that Patriots game that they won. So, all things considered, considering the wave of momentum this team is riding, do I think if you bench your guys for a whole game against the Miami Dolphins, which I don't think is going to be the case, you're going to see the starters one way or another this week for part of the game. If you were to bench all your guys this week, that'd be a horrible decision. I think you should play this game out. I think you should play your guys. If you get into the point where you were at with the Patriots, where you're up 38-9 and you're only halfway through the third quarter and you want to pull your dudes, all right, whatever. I get it. I get that. But play this game for what it's worth, damn it. Play it for what it's worth. The people of Buffalo deserve it. This football team deserves it to go 13-3, sweep the whole division, 6-0 in the AFC East as your AFC East champions. And like you said, Jeff, if the Dolphins lose this game, they're going to need a hell of a lot of help to get into the playoffs. It's not really a hell of a lot. You're going to need either of Cleveland, Baltimore, Indianapolis to lose their games to get into the playoffs for the Dolphins, that is. So they're going to need help one way or another. And if the Bills can control their destiny, you don't really have to play around with the scoreboard, watching and what have you, if you just handle business against the Dolphins. That is the goal this week for the Bills, in my opinion. You should play your guys as long as you need to. Do not play afraid. I understand trying to rest your guys up before the playoffs, but look at the wave of momentum this team is riding on right now. Winning 7 of 8 since, or excuse me, probably I believe it's 8 in a row since the Arizona game. But the wave of momentum that they're riding right now, do not put the brakes on it. Keep these guys in the game. Let them go out there and play. Let them go out there and win the division. Let them go out there and sweep and complete the sweep of the AFC East. Go 6-0 division, 13-3. You're the second seed in the AFC, and that's huge for the AFC playoff standings. That's huge for this football team, and that's huge for the city of Buffalo. Keep those guys out there. Let them play and beat the Dolphins. Beat Tua Tagovailoa, Ryan Fitzpatrick in the fourth quarter. I really don't care, because if you're asking me, I think this game, it could obviously a lot plays into it. Like I said, whether or not how much the Bills are going to plan to play their starters. But if you're asking me, play them as long as you're trying to win this game. And this is the game that the Bills should win. This is a game that the Bills should go out there and try to win. And I'm not saying that any professional football team goes out there and tries to lose or has the idea of, all right, we'll let them play a series and pull them. But that should not be the approach the Bills take this week. You started this season really well. 12-3. If this team goes 12-4, there's not going to be a single soul out there that's upset about that. But complete your season. Finish your year on a high note by winning they already won the AFC East, but sweeping the AFC East and flying into the AFC playoff standings with that second seed. I want to see this team ride the momentum that they built up over the last 2 months and carry it into what could be a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think it's too early really to tell what exactly the Bills are going to do. And I think a lot of what happens Sunday afternoon depends on what the Bills are going to do as far as how long they're going to keep their starters in this game. It's tough to say. But this is going to be a close game, in my opinion. I think the Bills are the better team. We know that. You're at home, and it depends on what they have to play for, really. We can wish this was a Sunday night game so that everything else would have already happened, and then we can have it clear as day whether Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and company need to play in this game or not. But I think the Dolphins are going to bring a lot to this game, it's going to be interesting. I saw a comment a little bit ago that said the Bills play the Dolphins 10 times in a row. They'll win every one. That's just illogical. And I don't think the commenter, understands pro football with saying that. But this is going to be a tough game for Buffalo because of what Miami has on the line. But I think that as long as Allen, you want Allen to play enough to where he can keep his momentum. Injury is a concern every game just as much as this one, but you want him and Diggs to keep playing just as long as to where they can keep their momentum going forward into the playoffs. And I think that's what we're going to see, whether that's the first half, whether that's 3 quarters, whether that's 1 quarter. I think that you just need to keep those guys comfortable, get them some reps, and then you can go about your way.
Absolutely. And Scott Blakely in the comments asks, any update on the Beasley injury? Excuse me. Wow, that's a bad one. But no, Scott, there's no update just yet. I think people are probably going to find out about that a little more towards when they start doing their press conferences in the beginning of the week, which if they're bumping everything out a day, it'll probably be either Wednesday or Thursday that they're probably going to comment on that. If Sean McDermott has anything to say, he normally doesn't have much to say in those press conferences. But for Bills fans right now, I keep reiterating this sentiment. I keep reiterating it. And I feel like everybody's really gotten to that point with this football team. But this team is damn good. They're a really good football team. They are built to win. They're built to last, which is really important as well. But you look at what the Bills have done this year, and, we can keep saying it. They haven't won the division in 25 years, most wins since the 90s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Point is, the Bills haven't been this good for 2 decades. 2 decades. That's a really long time. That's as long as the 2 individuals that are sitting on your screen right now, whether it's on your cell phone, your computer. That's as old as Jeff and I. So that's a really long time that the Bills were not good. So enjoy it. Fans need to enjoy it. Go to the airport. I'm not going to say don't wear your mask, but be safe. Go to the airport. Enjoy this however you can. If there's only 6,700 fans allowed in Bills Stadium, be one of the 6,700 fans. If this team ends up going on a Super Bowl run and wins they have a parade, are you going to be that guy that said, nah, dude, I didn't go? No, you're probably not. So enjoy this. Stop waiting. Stop holding your breath. It's celebrate how good this team is. Are they done by any means? No. But guess what? The people watching this stream and the 2 people on your screen, they're not on the football team. The people, all the fans, all the Bills fans, people are allowed to have these conversations. People are allowed to look forward to the things they haven't had to look forward to in 20 years. Bills Mafia is hungry. Bills Mafia is thirsty. They want this team to win. They're ready for this team to win. They're ready to have playoff football come back to Orchard Park for the first time in a really long time. So enjoy it. Don't let people tell you can't. I understand. Jeff and I are going to sit on this. We're going to sit on the podcast and we're going to criticize the team where we find points to critique them. And Jeff mentioned it earlier with their run defense. We are a pragmatic podcast. But Bills fans are allowed to enjoy themselves, and this team is a damn good football team that are going to do some really good things in the playoffs, if you're asking me. So enjoy it. Stop holding your breath. Stop waiting for this team to let you down, because guess what? If they end up letting you down, are you going to be what did you get out of it by just being a pessimist and waiting for this team to fail? You didn't get anything out of it. You didn't even enjoy your favorite football team winning for the first time in 20 years. So let's shut up. Let's enjoy what the Bills are doing. And I'm not talking about Jeff and I. I'm not telling Bills fans to shut up. But enjoy this run that they're on, because you don't know if it happens again. Because like I keep saying, this is incredibly difficult to replicate with the amount of parity in the NFL, with how competitive these teams are and how good front offices are. You don't know the next time this team is going to be this good. So enjoy it while it lasts, Bills Mafia. Jeff, last night was it was a great game. I'm really excited to see what happens against the Miami Dolphins. I think it's going to be a fun. I think it'll continue to be a fun game for the Bills fans to watch. That's just the overall point. There's a lot to be optimistic about if you're a Bills fan right now.
Yeah, there is. This is as well as the Bills have played in a really long time. And I think that they've kind of shown everybody that this isn't just them peaking. This is who they are, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And while the apprehension exists from me and from a lot of Bills fans going into the playoffs, it's also hard not to be optimistic with how well this team has played. And, the fact that I don't think there's a defense in the league that can stop the Buffalo Bills right now. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see what happens on this Sunday. I know a lot of people are going to be scoreboard watching this upcoming Sunday, when we see everything unfold in the last week of the regular season. But Clayton and I will be back next week with a really fun show to get everybody ready, to get you ready for the playoff matchup, the Bills' third playoff appearance in 4 seasons. And this one has a lot more weight to it. It seems like there's a lot more optimism this year, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the train's moving. I don't really see this Bills train stopping all that time soon. And, you know, as long as this, we'll be doing podcasts for a pretty long time, whether this team plays or not. But next Tuesday, you'll find us right here, 10:30 a.m. live. You can continue to subscribe on iTunes, on Spotify, Google Play, wherever you find your podcast. But I believe a majority of our listeners watch us live now, which, you know, it's pretty cool. They either watch the stream, you know, after we've gone live, or they watch while we're live. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening every single week. You know, the growth of this podcast and the growth of Cold Front Report in general, it's been insane, especially since I hopped on board. That's not a tip of the cap. I'm just saying, since I've gotten to the Cold Front Report and, you know, been a content creator, podcasting, live streams, the whole 9 yards, you know, the page has grown tremendously. And, you know, it's a lot of fun being able to do these podcasts, come on live at 10:30 in the morning. You know, I love doing this stuff. It's awesome. And, you know, Jeff enjoys it as well. You know, it's a lot of fun for people, especially when this team is winning. A lot of you guys, you always comment throughout the duration of the show, and I always appreciate it. It's always cool watching people fill up this comment section and talk to us while we're live. It's, you know, since we switched to the morning, it's been a different game. I get a coffee in me, and I'm ready to talk about the Bills game, especially in a morning like this on the heels of a Monday night victory such as last night. But, Jeff, it's been a fun show. We'll be back here Tuesday, 10:30. Please tell the people where they can find you until then.
You can find me on Twitter at RealJUVEINO. You can find me on Instagram at my name, Jeff Uvino. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in all season. This is our last regular season show, I guess. When we go live again, it will be playoff time. So thank you for everybody for commenting and getting your opinions in the comments all season. And today, we obviously appreciate each and every one of you, and looking forward to a playoff run alongside everybody.
Absolutely. And be sure to follow the Cold Front Report on Twitter, Instagram, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. That's at Cold Front Report on Twitter, at Cold Front Report _ Bills News on Instagram, Buffalo Bills Cold Front Report on Facebook, and then Cold Front Report on YouTube. And do not forget to check out the state of the art webpage that we have had built at coldfrontreport.com, where we have all the solid analysis that you could want and more blogs and analysis for the Buffalo Bills. And while you're at it, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at CFRCLAYTON, where you can find me joking, laughing, making fun of people, and getting into fights with Chiefs fans. That's the new thing on my Twitter account. But hey, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. And this has been the Overtime Podcast presented by the Cold Front Report.